So, I had a lot of fun a year ago talking about The Phantom Menace's 25th anniversary. In 2025, the big Star Wars movie we're celebrating the anniversary of is Revenge of the Sith's 20th. That being said, I'm a Star Wars channel who often likes to bounce around and cover different topics, and so we're returning to The Phantom Menace in this one, my friends. So buckle up, it's going to be a fun ride, because I'm going to be highlighting an Easter egg which you probably missed. Someone asked me about this the other day, and it dawned on me we might have an unanswerable Easter egg. Spoiler warning, there is some information about it, but you have to do some deep digging into Star Wars legends to find it. This one is really mind-boggling. I thought I knew every Phantom Menace Easter egg. We've spoken about things like the secret appearance of Quinlan Vos, or how Aayla Secura was meant to feature in it, how in one scene Darth Plagueis is just off screen. How about the statue of what looks like Maz Kanata in Anakin's room? The Phantom Menace is loaded with some awesome secrets, but we're going to be talking about one that is just for the diehards, one that is mostly known to fans who study every single frame. And I remember some of the Star Wars forums in the early 2000s, way before Twitter and YouTube, where Star Wars fans would hyper-focus on different frames from the movies, and there were lots of Star Wars fans who knew everything frame for frame. But let's see if you know this one. So the Easter egg we're talking about takes place an hour and 23 minutes into the movie. Senator Sheev Palpatine, the secret apprentice of Darth Plagueis, is talking to Padme Amidala, the Queen of Naboo. In Palpatine's apartment, he's sowing seeds of doubt about Chancellor Valorum's competency. Palpatine essentially says the Republic has changed, everything is in the hands of bureaucrats, there is no interest in the common good, and he alludes to the Republic needing a stronger, more powerful Chancellor, and as we know, this is the beginning of his rise to power. But in the background, as with most Easter eggs that concern Palpatine, whether it's his apartment, or in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, the Chancellor's office, statues and artifacts always seem to harken back to the ancient past, sometimes relating directly to the Sith, or even the Jedi-Sith Wars. And some have theorized the reason Palpatine kept them in the open was to mock the Jedi under their noses. The shroud of the dark side clouded everything. But in this scene in The Phantom Menace, there's a very peculiar looking statue, one which is extremely difficult to identify, but I did some digging, and its name and backstory is found in two places: the Darth Plagueis novel by James Luceno, and Star Wars Fact File number 32. On set, the statue was just called Hideous Creature, and let's be honest, when you look at this thing, knowing the kinds of Sith relics Palpatine kept, it might be tempting to think this could be a statue commemorating a long-dead Sith, or someone who worshipped the Sith, someone adjacent to the original Sith species. However, it's surprisingly more innocent. It was gifted to Palpatine from a Triffian senator called Elen Lee, and the statue itself is depicting a Triffian. Triffians were a species of furry humanoids. They had large, triangular-shaped appendages. They were common on their homeworld of Triffis, Kifex, and even Coruscant. We even see them in Attack of the Clones. They were represented by, like I said, Senator Elen Lee, who was very fond of Palpatine. But another notable member of their species was a pod racer called Ebi Endocott, who was part of the Boonteeve Classic in Episode 1. He was a troublemaker, and one of Anakin's competitors. An interesting species indeed, and a very little known fact. Once you know this statue is of a Triffian, it makes sense, but because the carving looks so different how they look out and about, it's not evident to make this link. But surprisingly, it's one of the most innocent items in Palpatine's entire collection. So I want to go a bit deeper with this, because Palpatine's manipulations is one of my favorite niches within the prequel trilogy. And it wasn't just psychological, it was down to the decor of his office. From the outside looking in, Palpatine's office was luxurious and diplomatic, but the truth is his decor was steeped in Sith influence, hiding dark secrets in plain sight. As Chancellor Palpatine had free reign to design his Chancellor's suite, rich crimson hues dominated the walls, a Sith-inspired preference for the color red. Ominous bronze statues and archaic carvings lined the chamber, but Palpatine was so self-assured and arrogant enough to assume the Jedi Knights and Masters who saw them knew nothing of their significance or their hidden history. So Palpatine had two offices, a ceremonial office and a business office. One of the most striking set of objects we see are the 4 bronzium statues of the 4 sages of Dwarti, ancient philosophers and lawgivers who founded the Constitution of the Republic. In Republic history, the teachings of the sages were influential but controversial. One sage in particular, Brata, encouraged study of the dark side of the Force, so it's no surprise the Sith, including Darth Plagueis and Palpatine, revered these figures. and in one of the statues, Palpatine stored his lightsabers, undetected and unsensed by the Jedi. According to the expanded universe, Palpatine relished in the symbolism, the Force sage's merciless political philosophy, that the light side of the Force is very narrow, and to understand all of the complexities and mysteries within it, it's important to simultaneously understand the dark side. Displaying the statues in his office was a sly nod to his true creed. Under all the guise of honoring Republic antiquity was a dark, twisted Lord of the Sith. Beyond symbolism, Sidious kept the remains of his own master Darth Plagueis in a spiritual urn, which was also on full display. It's pretty dark knowing how Palpatine murdered Plagueis. It's even more poetic that Anakin walks past it, because Plagueis was fascinated by Anakin just before his death. Like I said, he was just off screen in several parts of The Phantom Menace. For years, fans theorized Plagueis was the one who created Anakin, but in reality, and I spoke about this during the run of The Acolyte, Anakin was a Force response to some of Plagueis' morbid experiments. Aside from this relic, Palpatine also kept a Sith chalice, recovered from the forbidden world of Malachor. In ancient times, the Sith would use chalices like this in meditation rituals to enhance their dark side focus. Palpatine obtained this artifact in a secret expedition, and instead of hiding it, it was on full display in his office. And you know, my friends, it's pretty understandable that to an untrained eye, it would just seem like a decorative goblet or exotic souvenir. This is how out of touch the Jedi were with the reality of the Sith. The chalice was steeped in dark side associations. Sidious is also rumored to have used it in private to center himself in Sith meditation. The fact an object from a notorious Sith world sat quietly on Coruscant in the midst of the Jedi domination of the Republic is a testament to Palpatine's audacity. He literally kept Sith mysticism at finger's reach, all the while appearing to engage in mundane governance. In addition, in the new canon book Star Wars Complete Locations, there's more information about all of this. We learn that Palpatine's chambers were equipped with a Sith archive, not to mention a handful of secret passageways and escape routes if he was ever caught or if anything went down. The book mentions this. Instead of hiding his metaphorical true colors, Palpatine went with the Sith-inspired red and littered his office with a collection of sculptural pieces that were from his own personal art collection, and some were heirlooms passed down from Darth Plagueis and even his master. So some of Palpatine's artifacts could go all the way back to Darth Tenebrous. Earlier, my friends, I also mentioned the Great Hyperspace War Relief. It was a daily reminder to Palpatine of the great conflict between the Sith and the Jedi, a conflict he intended to conclude with the Sith Grand Plan. He used the mural as a focal point for his scheming, a constant visual affirmation of Sith dominance to come. In conversations with Anakin, as we see in Revenge of the Sith, one can only imagine Palpatine drawing on the imagery of Jedi and Sith battling behind him, as if ancient Sith spirits were watching.